guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today we are going to be doing a fire themed unicorn. Now with this piece I really didn't have like a game plan for it. I just kind of winged it and had a lot of fun with it, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do before we start on our actual unicorn piece is I need to pick out the colors and kind of get a color scheme going. And my idea is to go kind of fiery red. So I have a basic color that I'm going to use pretty much to make the doll. So it's going to be just everything this color to begin with. And then I grabbed this green. I thought it looked pretty. I'm really not sure if I'm even going to use it. So this is a maybe color. And then I have some sequins that I'm wanting to use. I've got a gold and a red that I think will look really cool with this. Lastly, I have some yarn, and this is what we're going to be using to make the tail and the mane. Anyways, since we already have the yarn and stuff out, let's get this all figured out first, and then we can move on to different things. So to make the tail and mane, we need to cut a lot of yarn the same length, and to do this quickly so you don't have to do it individually, what I do is I like to take something and wrap my yarn around it. I had this one ruler and I figured this would be a good length for the tail and the mane. Before we cut it off, we're going to kind of make this into like a makeshift hair extension. So I'm going to take some hot glue and we're going to lay down a nice gloopy layer right at the very top of the ruler that I have wrapped. And then after I had my glue dried, I cut the yarn away from the ruler. So when we start putting the body together, we'll be able to sew this in place where the mane would go, and then we can do the same thing for the tail. But for now, let's get our pattern figured out. Now I probably won't start sewing until after I get all the clay pieces done, but I do need the pattern to get a rough idea of how large to make them so everything works together. So this is the pattern that I'm going to be working with. It's a pretty basic horse shape. I am trying something out a little bit with the legs and then how to make the butt more rounded. Instead of just having a belly piece, I have like a little flap that'll go over the booty. This will also be where we connect the tail. So we'll see how this works. I might have to adjust it as we go. Okay, so before we start using our Sculpey, I'm actually going to get my epoxy clay and we're going to be making the horn and the hooves. These are more fragile and I figured using a stronger clay would be a good idea. So even though this clay is going to be a lot more sturdy once it's cured, it's actually a lot softer when it's not cured. So it really needs a wire frame to sculpt everything on to make sure that it holds its shape, especially with something as long as the horn. And I want to go really long with this horn. My idea is to actually kind of make it look a little rough, and we'll probably have this gold at the end. Oh, also I'm really bad at mixing epoxy clay, so I always have extra, so I ended up making some little decorative like beads that can go at the end of some little hair decoration things we'll add to the mane. I don't know, I just made these because I didn't want to waste the clay. Anyways, I waited for the next day for my horn to be completely cured and I switched over to my Sculpey clay to do the rest of the face. So I'm just going to roll out some clay, get a nice thin layer to start, and then I'm going to build up the clay where I need it, which is mainly usually the eyes so that they kind of stick out a little bit more. So yeah, I'm just going to get a basic shape down and then we're going to figure out where everything is going to go. Now, lately I've been using a lot of eyes that I've made myself, and they tend to be a little iffy in the oven, but I had a pair of eyes that I bought a while back, and these actually bake quite well, so I'm actually just going to add them to the face and sculpt them in so I don't have to like replace them with the little glass pieces and whatnot like I have been. So yay, we get to skip a step. These are really pretty. I was kind of surprised I still had them. I can't believe I didn't use them on anything in the longest time. I think I've had them for like a year. Anyways, once I have the eyes in place, I'm going to figure out where I want the mouth, how I want to lay it out, and the nose. I might add a few extra things here and there. I feel like he needs to have like some little eyebrow lumps, so I'm going to add those, and I'm just going to kind of mess around with everything and then kind of messy up his texture of his face a bit. I know I'm not really going horse with him. His face is very much not horse. It kind of is, but more on the like more cartoon style. And I was just trying to do something more unique. So again, I wasn't trying to get like anatomically correct with the face for a horse. It was, yeah. Anyways, once I'm happy with how the face looks, I'm going to put this in the oven to bake for about 45 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit. Once it's done baking and cooling, we can start working on the painting. Now, I'm not going super detailed with the painting because I kind of want to glitter a lot of this. Plus, with the face, I want to add more sequence to it. So most of the face, you're not going to even see the paint job on. But I do want to get it completely like color matched as best I can to the fabric to make it look like okay, because I don't want just white clay peeking through. I'm also going to be painting and glittering the little beads that we're going to add to the mane later. So I want these to be kind of like glittery little teeth gems or something. I don't know. I still don't know. I'm just throwing this piece together because I'm having fun with it. Okay, so since our clay pieces are pretty much ready, let's get started on the sewing. So again, everything's going to be this one minky red fabric to start, and then we're going to layer some sequins on top of it. So I'm going to start with the body, which right now we have a body section and a neck section to make the entirety of the body. So I'm going to sew these together first for each side, and then we have like the under section of the neck, which we're going to attach the two body sections to. So I'm going to get where we basically have one body section. We haven't added the little like butt flap thing to make his booty a little bit rounder, but we'll work on that once he's more on the wireframe. And then for the legs, we're going to take the front legs and the back legs. They each have kind of a left and right, and we're going to sew down the front of them to combine the two pieces of fabric. Now the back legs have this extra little cut that I added, and I did that to try and round the hip a little bit more. So we're gonna also have to sew that too. Okay, so before we start adding everything to the wireframe, let's finish up the stuff for the mane and the tail. So for the mane, I want to add all the little beaded decorations to it first. And then for the tail, I need to cover up that glue section, so I have a bit of fabric that I'm going to sew over that, and then we'll attach this to the little butt flap that we're going to add to the very end. And then once that's all ready, we can start adding to the wireframe. So I'm going to take the fabric for the body and I'm going to cut some little holes for the wires of the legs to run through. We're going to slide this over our wireframe. We can add the head to the end of the wire for the neck. We're going to then take the neck fabric and glue that around the base of the head. You'll want to let that dry a little bit. And then we're going to start stuffing and closing this up. When we're closing up the neck, we're going to have to sew the mane in place as we do it. This part is a little tricky just because the yarn is just so much in the way, so take your time with it. I know I get frustrated when I do this, but it's really worth it for that really pretty mane. Once we get to the very end, I'm then going to start sewing in place our little butt flap, or at least halfway, and then I'm going to cut a hole in the middle, roughly about where I think the tail needs to go, and we can sew the tail in place, and then continue stuffing and closing up the rest of the back of him. Once that's done, I can start working on adding the legs. I think I'm going to work on the back legs first. So I'm going to take the fabric for that and I'm going to cut some holes so I can run the wires through that too. And we're going to stitch that in place. Now I'm going to do these a little bit differently, but anything that looks a little wonky is going to get covered up with sequins. So I'm not really too concerned about that. So I'm going to get that sewn in place and then we're going to figure out how long I need the wires and we're going to add the hoofs to the end of them. I always make my wires a little longer than I need to so I can adjust them later. And then once that's in place, we can then start gluing the fabric around the bases of the hooves, let that dry, stuff, and close up the legs. And then of course, front legs are basically the same. The sewing is just slightly different because they aren't shaped the same as the back legs. Okay, so our body is pretty much put together, so it's time for us to decorate. Well, I still need to add ears. I realized I kind of still needed to do that, so I made some ears real quick, glued those in place. And then I'm going to start adding our sequins. So I'm going to start with the face for this first, and we're going to glue that in place because I really can't sew them to clay. So, so I'm going to get the sequins glued to his face, and then when we get that done, we're going to start moving down his body with them and sewing them in place. So I'm just kind of winging the pattern. I know I want to throw in some gold here and there, but most of it is going to be the red. So I'm gonna get that done, and while I was working on it, I realized that his neck is way too thick looking, so we're gonna have to fix that. So I technically can't make his neck thinner right now unless I wanted to completely redo his neck, but I can make it look thinner. So what I'm gonna do is I stopped the sequence to the point of where I feel like the neck makes more sense, and we're gonna make some more hair extensions and glue that in place, and that will cover the extra fabric and make it look like his mane is thicker. So just kind of a little bit of a trick. And then to finish off his face, I think we're gonna glue on a few extra gems here and there to kind of cover up some of the seams for the sequin fabric. And then I think I want to braid his mane. It's just very much too messy right now. It's hard to keep it maintained, and you can't really see all the beads that we added. So I'm gonna kind of clean it up, and I'm going to braid it a little bit. Okay guys, and here is our little fire unicorn. I had a lot of fun with adding all the scales and stuff. I need to start doing this more. Every time I do it, I just enjoy it. It is a lot of work, but I always love how it comes out. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to have him up for sale on my website, so if anyone wants to buy him, give him a new home, check the links down below. Also, I have been trying to get back into the habit of streaming more consistently. We had a lot of house stuff we had to deal with, so most of that should be over and we should be streaming. I've been trying to do mainly either a Tuesday or Wednesday stream. Sometimes I might do a Thursday or Friday, so just kind of keep an eye out. If you're on Instagram and following me there, you should be able to see when I post, and I always like notify you guys when I'm going live there, so that's a good way to find out. Or just follow me on Twitch. Same username as everything else usually. That should definitely notify you, or at least show off to the side if I'm live or not. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!